We are live. Hi, everyone. I would like to welcome here in our special interview with special guest. And I would like to say hello to and welcome also Ebiye Jeremy Udo-Udoma, a.k.a. Handball Ninja. How, man?
Hey, Stefan. I appreciate you guys having me on. Looking forward to this interview.
Well, first of all, I need to thank you that actually you accepted, our invite. I'm, so excited. So thank you.
You're welcome.
Well, maybe, a couple of words on the very beginning, if, there are some kind of fans from outside the Czech Republic. So a couple of words about maybe me and, us. We are kind of fresh podcast here in Czech Republic, and we are doing, interviews with our players from national team, both men and women, with some, referees, coaches, etc. Interesting people around handball generally. But we would like to go definitely outside our Czech Republic, and this is why we decided to, reach you and try to have you here. Just about a few words about me. I'm also a handball player. The regular one, amateur player of the beach handball, I think so. And I'm doing some stuff around handball, generally some, speaker, in some cases moderator, etc. And, now maybe it's time, how would you describe and introduce you?
Good question. So my name's Ebiye Jeremy Udo-Udoma. Born here in Los Angeles, California, to two Nigerian parents. I grew up playing a variety of sports. Started playing handball when I was 15 years old after seeing it in the 2008 Beijing Olympics with the indoor version of the game, and ended up working my way towards the indoor national team for USA Team Handball when I was 20 years old. And so I spent my early 20s playing on both the right and left wings on our men's indoor national teams. And when I was 22, I got the opportunity to play in a beach handball tournament in the state where our national team residency program was based. And I had an absolute blast. Our team came in second. We lost that championship game to the Colombian national team because they actually knew how to play beach handball. And we were a bunch of indoor players playing beach. And that experience stuck with me. And a couple months later, got the invite to try out for the USA men's beach handball team. Made the team. And that was back in 2015. It's 2021 now, and the rest is history.
Cool, pretty cool. Definitely, we will discuss a lot of things, what you basically mentioned, because, I read some articles about you, and there is bunch of interesting things what you did. Not just achievements, but, what kind of sports you do, and, achievements like MVPs on some tournaments. So, really good job. Maybe, I would like to start because, we are currently living in tricky times. So basically, I'm interested, how to handle actually this pandemic situation. like, and how was your, like, the whole year? Because we are there, I believe, for 12 months right now.
Yeah, COVID's been interesting for sure. On my end, I'm one of the few people that I guess would say has somewhat benefited from the new world or the new normal. Of course, there are elements of life that will never be the same that I certainly miss. And as an athlete, you know, I've missed out on a world championship that we had qualified for. It's supposed to be in Italy in 2020, got postponed, and now it's officially canceled. I normally play in the Brazilian championship circuit, and I didn't get to play this last year because that was postponed. And obviously a lot of life has changed, but you know, within crisis lies all opportunity. And
Totally.
For me, I just tried to stay focused on, you know, what I could do here. You know, initially when COVID hit in early March, we didn't know if it was a temporary thing. So my mindset was always, okay, we're going to suspend practices, but I've still got to train because we have a world championship in June. Or even if we don't have a world championship, we're still going to have other competitions. And I'm someone who's always like training by themselves. So I took that as an opportunity to focus a little bit less on preparing for upcoming opponents and really use the surprise downtime to work on facets of my athleticism that are really unique to me and aren't necessarily super beach handball focused. And so it's been a lot of training at home. This is my house.
Okay, cool.
I've done a lot of training in this room and downstairs and just outside over the past year. And so for me, I enjoy training by myself and working on the different facets of my athleticism that you can't necessarily work on in a group. And so that's kind of where I've shifted my focus over 12 months. And I've also been able to spend more time on my social media with having fewer competitions. I've been able to, you know, really devote more time to creating content, and my social media channels have grown over the past 12 months. One of the cool things with COVID was when May rolled around, and that was the first sign of our lockdown being lifted a little bit here. Like March and April, we were like home, like we couldn't go anywhere. But May, you know, the beaches opened up. There were a lot of restrictions. We couldn't, you know, train with the full team, but at least we could be outside on the beach. And when May rolled around, I thought of how I spent March and April, like literally just home training by myself and kind of isolated from other people. I had the idea that I wanted to capture this chapter of life. I think when we look at COVID, you know, 50, 60 years from now, we'll look back in our history books like, did this really happen? You know, and I wanted to have something that really captured what this unique time was for me. And I ended up creating a video project with Max McCoy, who was a videographer I found through Instagram. And it was a little difficult just having a 2-man production team, but we made it work. And we were able to publish the video on my 27th birthday. And that video won me the World Games Athlete of the Month award. So COVID in a really weird way has actually been somewhat beneficial for me. It's just been a matter of shifting priorities and focusing on what I can focus on.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I'm glad that you are saying it, basically, because I'm always saying in my job that, you know, and it's nothing new, but, you know, that every single crisis, it's an opportunity. And it's, you know, it's up to us, basically, how we will challenge it. You know, I totally understand it. For some of us, it's more tricky when you can't basically do the job. So it's not my case. But anyway, you know, it's still an opportunity. So I'm glad that you utilize it for sure. And, you know, basically, you know, this podcast, was established because of COVID, and we have some kind of, you know, free time, and, you know, we think about it with guys, and okay, maybe let's start it, you know, this is the time. So yeah. And it's, you know, you mentioned the practicing. We will definitely discuss it, because, you know, I'm following you for some, you know, couple of months, maybe years on the Instagram, and I'm kind of like curious, about your, methodology and the approach. But we will definitely talk about it later. Maybe, right now, like I'm interested in one thing, because if this is something what I did not find on the, internet and on your socials, you are like professional athlete, or like, do you have some kind of like a job, or are you just, focusing on the sport?
Yeah, no, my situation is a bit unique where my career revolves around sports, and I wear a number of hats, so to speak. Not that my hair allows me to wear hats literally anymore, but it's actually been my athletic career that has been my marketing tool for me being a coach. And then, through my social media, I've also accrued a couple sponsors. So it's basically, I'm a sportsman. Like, that's my life revolves around sports, all the opportunities that I have, the speaking engagements that I do, the clients that I train. It's all connected to me being an athlete and what I can accomplish as an athlete, and using that to leverage all the other opportunities. So I guess I'm the Handball Ninja. That's kind of my thing. With beach, it's a primarily amateur discipline. So it's not as if they're really players who can make their living off of solely playing beach. But I leverage my beach career. And also I played on the USA Touch rugby national team, and that's what this jersey's from. And I utilize that in my association with Team USA to capitalize on the other opportunities, whether it's coaching, whether it's doing speaking engagements. I'm trying to delve into other things, but really just trying to leverage what I've been able to do with my career, and what I've been able to leverage with my social media platform now to generate all these other opportunities. It's kind of how I operate.
Yeah, that's definitely great. Well, you mentioned that you are like part of couple of national teams. So maybe, back to the roots, because I did some, investigation, and I read in some article that you did a lot of sports. So maybe back to the roots, and what kind of sports what kind of all sports you did in the past, and what are you doing right now besides the beach handball, the indoor handball, and the rugby?
Yeah. Oh man, if I don't know off the top of my head if I can list every single sport that I've played, but when I was younger, basketball and baseball were the first two sports that I got involved with, the first two team sports here in the U.S., and then got involved with soccer, football, a little bit after that, and then transitioned from soccer to American football, or gridiron football, which is our most popular team sport here. And then as I got into middle school, got into high school, the main sports were like basketball, baseball, football. Like, those are the big three American sports. But whether for fun or recreation, I dabbled in as many sports as I could. Especially when you're young, you want to take advantage of being able to try as many things as you can. Generally, as you get older, life tends to concentrate what you do, and you only have so much variety. But when I was younger, at my high school, I played varsity tennis. I was a manager for the wrestling team. I did track and field, where I triple jumped, long jumped, and threw javelin. Played dodgeball. I actually played at the 2011 Dodgeball World Championships. It's actually where I met one of my good friends and national teammates, Vince Marchbanks. And ended up recruiting him into the beach handball side of things 5 years later, but that's a different story. Long story short, I played a lot of sports at university. I was a part of our table tennis club, obviously handball, ultimate frisbee, ultimate disc, dodgeball, as I mentioned. I really got to try a lot of different sports, and in my late teens, early 20s, made the transition towards our indoor handball national team, and decided maybe handball could be, where I make it as an athlete. Because in the American sports system, I finished high school when I was 16. And I was a bit of a late bloomer physically. So when I finished school and I was going to be of age to try to play collegiately, physically, I was still really small. And I wasn't good enough as an athlete to get a college scholarship and play at the next level, like a lot of athletes would go on that path to ultimately become professionals. And then it was really handball that gave me a second opportunity to be a competitive athlete, because it's not a super popular sport here in the United States. And so there wasn't too much competition. And I ended up working towards our national team pool. And what ended up happening was when I was 20, all the right wings got injured like at the same time. And in the residency program, I was training on the right wing because I was trying to develop to be ambidextrous, and there wasn't another lefty. And I got the opportunity to start on the right wing in an exhibition game where I played really well, and then ultimately worked my way into the starting lineup when I was 21. But long story short, I played a lot of sports, got involved in handball initially when I was 15, made the national team when I was 20, and that's been my primary focus since. I did get the opportunity with USA Touch Rugby that came about through my mom's former colleague's son-in-law, who happened to be on the touch rugby team that trains in the same city as our beach national team trains. Like super serendipitous situation that worked out. So I got to play at the World Cup in 2019 in Malaysia, in between when my beach team played in Mexico and when we won our North American Caribbean Championship in Trinidad and Tobago.
I have to say it, like that's crazy. That's
I can't
crazy
hear
because
you right now.
No, and now it's better. I'm not on mute.
Okay, you're good.
Okay, cool.
You went out for a quick second. Sorry about that. I don't know if it was on my end.
Good. Yeah, perfect. Well, maybe the connection. So we are back. I wanted to say that it's crazy, how many sports you did and practicing. Well, a lot of questions appears in my mind. Like first, maybe let's start from the very end. You mentioned the touch rugby. Like, what is because I'm not sure if I know the rules. It's like less contact, right?
Yes, less contact than normal rugby. It's 6-on-6 as opposed to 7-on-7 or 15-on-15, and you have 6 touches to get down the field and score. So basically, whenever you get touched, it's like you get tackled, and then you have to put the ball down, have a teammate pick it up, and then you keep play going, and you have 6 touches to score. If on the 6th touch you haven't scored, it's a turnover at the spot of that touch. And then it's just 1 point per try or touchdown, and the team with the most tries wins.
Cool. You are also a fan. I read it somewhere that maybe on the Instagram, but maybe on some article. You are a fan of competitive tech, right? You know the competition.
For sure.
You got some friend there which who compete somewhere. I saw it on your socials. Am I right?
Yeah. So I actually got into parkour, I'd say junior high school. I was always really impressed with trackers, guys who can move and flip and have incredible body control. And chase tag is one of my favorite sports to watch. It's 20 seconds in an arena, and it's one person just trying to tag another person in 20 seconds. And the athletes who compete professionally are absolutely incredible. In reference to your question, one of my beach handball teammates, Charlie White, was on the series premiere of Ultimate Tag, which is a show on Fox Network that was shot here in Los Angeles. And I actually went to cheer him on with his fiance, Maria. And it was such a cool show to be a part of, because the taggers, for the most part, were these professional trackers. And so these are guys who, can navigate a course, and their athleticism is absolutely incredible. And Charlie ended up winning the episode he was on. It was the first episode of the first season. And it was super fun to watch him there. And the athletes who were the taggers were incredible. There's a guy called The Flow, Tavon, who I think is the best athlete I've seen in person. And I say that having played on 3 national teams. Just he would jump from the arena to the announcer stage, and just his athleticism was incredible. And so it was really cool for me to witness.
I saw it. I saw the whole. I'm not sure if the whole episode, but I saw it because I was really curious how it looks like. Like 2 things, and it is totally crazy, and they are like so complex athletes, and it's like super fast. It was like crazy. I was like, Oh, that's really cool. And the second thing is you danced there, right? You did some, show with the fans. Am I right?
So in between, I'm not sure if I can say this, but actually I should be able to say this now. It's that the show's live. So they tape multiple episodes in a day, right? Normally when they show a show, it's like one, full show a day, but we actually went over several days and they shoot one course with every tagger in a given day. And between different episodes, they would try to do things to keep the crowd engaged, because it's important that the crowd is really active for every show, because the crowd is there for like 10 different episodes and you don't want them to be tired for 2 of the episodes and have that look bad on camera. And so they have guys who will do things to try to keep the crowd entertained. And between 2 of the taggers, they asked the crowd to come out and dance. And for me, I'm not going to pass up an opportunity to dance. And so we did the Cupid Shuffle, and it was super fun. And I was able to do it with one of the taggers, Lorena, the Atomic Ant is who she was on the show. And it was just one of those really fun moments that made the day more interesting, kept things a little bit more lively. I think we had gone through 7 of the 10 episodes at that point, and just something to reinvigorate the crowd before the last push of the day. It was really fun to be a part of.
Yeah, but it's kind of like not natural for you, I think so, to make a joy around you, but also the dancing basically you are enjoying, right? Because even after you score a goal within the beach handball, you are always doing some stuff. But I read somewhere that like we will see on some videos later, I think so, but I read somewhere also that, in the meantime, if you are not practicing, you are trying to learn some kind of special dance. Am I right?
Yeah, well, that was more pre-COVID. Post-COVID, can't really do too much social dancing anymore. But pre-COVID, one of my favorite ways to cross-train / socialize, because my life was basically like work, train, sleep, repeat, and I didn't really have too much downtime with friends. But the one thing that I could do where I didn't have to drink and I could be social and also do something that was cognitively challenging was social dancing. And so I got into swing dancing when I was in college, and then I got into salsa dancing when I moved back to LA. And it was just something that's fun for me to do, work on my footwork, my coordination. One of the things I like about like partner social dancing is you have that dynamic of going up against an opponent and reading and reacting to them. The only difference is instead of reading an opponent and trying to avoid them, you're reading an opponent and trying to work with them. But it's the same concept, that read and react concept to another human being that I get to practice in social dancing that carries over into playing a ball sport. So it's one of my favorite things to do. At least it was one of my favorite things to do until COVID kind of killed that. And I haven't been able to do too much of it since, because there's still restrictions on gatherings and those type of events.
Yeah, that's like a really interesting point of view, that you can basically utilize some experience from dancing and transform it and use it within the sport, even handball. So that's interesting point of view. What I wanted to ask you, from the very beginning, is the Handball Ninja, the nickname. How this happened actually.
Sure. I've told this story.
Who made it? Yeah, tell me the story, or tell us the story, not just me.
Sure. I've told the story a couple times at this point, but as far as Handball Ninja goes, it actually started with the American Ninja, which was a nickname given to me by Maradona Marquez in Rio, Brazil in 2016. We were playing against the Brazilian national team in a friendly in Praia São Francisco in Rio de Janeiro. And I scored my first goal. I was in the specialist shirt on the sideline. I took a defender 1v1 and I scored, and I dove off the sideline. As you alluded to, it was kind of my signature thing after I finish a goal. And normally if a player scores a goal, you say the player's name and say the player's last name, right? And the first time I scored, he said something, and I'm used to people butchering my name, as we've talked about, but he said something that didn't sound anything like my name at all. And I was like, but the Brazilian fans were chuckling. I was like, maybe it's a Brazilian thing. I don't know. I wasn't paying too close of attention. So on my next goal, I was listening closely, and he was calling me the American Ninja. I was like, oh, wait, one, he's speaking English. And then two, like, the American Ninja, I can roll with that. That's really cool. And, after the game, the fans that came up to ask for autographs and selfies, like, ninja, 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 American Ninja. It's like, maybe there's something to this whole ninja thing, And the following month, the IHF, the International Handball Federation, they had a social media campaign called Handball Ninja. And I won that. And I was like, over the past 2 months, I've been called the American Ninja. I've been called Handball Ninja. Maybe there's something to this idea of being a ninja. And after the IHF dubbed me Handball Ninja, I just changed my social media accounts to @HandballNinja, my Instagram, my Twitter, and my Facebook. And it's a nickname that has kind of worked since. It's kind of my identity at this point. And that was end of 2016 when Maradona first called me the American Ninja, and when the IHF dubbed me Handball Ninja. And it's 2021 now. So 4 years and change where it's been a solid nickname. And now most of the international athletic community just knows me as the Handball Ninja. A lot of my opponents just call me Ninja for short, which I like. I'd rather be called Ninja than people messing up my name. So it's been a good nickname to have.
Yeah, I get it, but I think it's perfect fit, and also it's catchy. It's catchy. So yeah, I forgot one thing. When we are discussing, your past, basically, because I found like really interesting info that you basically won some talent, not show, but some kind of. Not training, but some kind of related to competition. In 2012, I believe, basketball Globetrotters, Harlem Globetrotters. So what was this competition?
Yeah, so I mentioned the sports I played. Basketball was really my first love. Like that was my main sport, and my dream was to be a point guard for the Los Angeles Lakers. Like that was my childhood dream before, handball and all the other things took off. But my dream was to be a basketball player. And I got into doing freestyle basketball work when I was at university age, because I grew up in a city called Portland, Oregon. I was born in Los Angeles, but I grew up in a suburb of Portland, Oregon. And if you don't know Portland, Oregon, it's where Nike is headquartered and where Adidas North America is also headquartered. So a lot of sports marketing and a lot of sports commercials runs through the Portland, Oregon area. And when I was at university age, my late teens, I got into sports modeling in Portland, and a lot of, as I mentioned, sports commercials, Nike, Adidas run through that city. And so I started really doing a lot of freestyle basketball work to try to get into some basketball commercials in particular. I ended up doing a variety of sports. I was in a Nike soccer commercial in 2013 at one point, and did campaigns for other companies, which has really helped me today in managing my own social media, having that sort of a background, working on sports commercials for as long as I did. It was like 2012 to 2020. But to answer your question specifically about the Harlem Globetrotters, is the summer of 2012, I was 19, and they had a YouTube, could you be the next Harlem Globetrotter competition, just seeking out talent that they may not necessarily see play in the NCAA, which is our collegiate sports system. And I made a video with my childhood friend who actually created my YouTube account, Snubby J. He's this really talented musician who plays a PVC instrument, and we were childhood friends. And he was the one who actually turned me on to social media content creation. And he produced a video for me that I submitted for that competition, and I won it. And I was actually working towards the Harlem Globetrotters, but around the same time, I got the opportunity to try out for Team USA, and I picked the handball route just because everybody in America plays basketball. and I've always wanted to be a bit of a pioneer, and try to blaze a new trail. And handball is not really a popular sport here. And so I ultimately chose to pursue handball. But like I said, basketball is my first love. And the lessons that I learned as a freestyler and through having my brief chapter with the Globetrotters, those are all things that I've been able to apply to my life today, to how I approach social media, to some of the moves that I perform on a handball court. So it's all worked out. But 2012, I was 19 years old when I won that Could You Be the Next Harlem Globetrotter competition.
I was really impressed because I remember my times in high school with friends that we checked their videos, and they are crazy and funny and so skilled. So I was really impressed. Like related to basketball, I did not prepare this question, but basically, so what do you say right now on the Lakers? With the LeBron.
I'm happy. The funny thing about LeBron is I spent the first half of his career rooting against him, just because he played on teams that weren't my team. And I'm a huge Kobe fan. Rest in peace. And so anybody who was a threat to my Kobe immediately became an enemy. But then he came to the Lakers. Was like, okay, I can root for this guy now. And I mean, he's an incredible person, incredible human being. What he accomplishes on and off the court, for him to be at his age and perform at the level he's at, where he's still getting better every year. He's such an inspiration. For me, I'm 27, and for me to see him a decade older than me do the things that he does, how he's evolved his game as the game has changed, and to still remain at the top level, it's absolutely incredible. And then the fact that he can also manage a personal life, seemingly, in addition to the game. He appears to be a good husband, good father to 3 kids. I know for myself personally, I've made the decision, like, I'm just gonna be single. I'm gonna focus on my work. I don't know how he does all that he does on the court and has the life that he does off the court. I don't know how he does it.
Yeah, I have to agree. It's he's like an idol, I would say, a role model in many cases. And probably you also know NHL, or you like, for sure.
Of course, hockey,
So and do you know, like, I think so, our best player ever, Jaromír Jágr? Do you know him?
Yeah, of course.
Of course. So in some interview,
Flyers, legend for sure.
Yeah. And he started like 40 years ago in Penguins, and he is still playing, by the way.
I know, it's crazy.
Here in Czech Republic. But I wanted to say he is still committed, but he was committed, during his career, and he achieved a lot, within the hockey. He achieved a lot. But in some interview, he said that after the meeting with the LeBron, he totally changed his mind, that he is not pushing himself so hard as he thought originally. And it's crazy if someone like Jaromír Jágr says this. So then LeBron must be some special, because
for sure.
Because Jágr is like one of the top 5, top 10 for sure, top players within hockey ever.
Of course.
So
funny thing about Jaromír Jágr. So I was a big video game player growing up, and I don't know if you know of the backyard sports games. There was a series of sports games where they had professional athletes cartoonized as kids, and in a backyard hockey, which is the hockey version of it, Jaromír Jágr was one of the players in the game.
Really?
And that was actually my introduction to Jaromír Jágr, was through backyard hockey. It was the series of games. I think the company's disbanded. They don't make them anymore. But when I was a kid growing up, all the major sports. So there's backyard basketball with NBA players and WNBA players like Kevin Garnett, Lisa Leslie. There was a backyard baseball with Major League Baseball players, backyard football with NFL players. And it was like these sports stars that were cartoonized as kids, and then there were other kids in the league that would play in all the different backyard sports, and that was a huge part of my childhood. And Jaromír Jágr was in backyard hockey, and like you said, one of the best hockey players of all time.
Like when we are discussing these great players, like 1 month ago or 2 months ago, there was a Super Bowl, right? And Tom Brady did it again, and like that's crazy. And in one of the most popular podcasts here in Czech Republic, the guy said that in his eyes, basically, Tom Brady is GOAT. But across the sports, that's the important thing.
That's the thing. Yeah.
His opinion is that he is definitely GOAT across the sports. Well, do you agree, or what do you think? Is it even relevant discussion to compare different sports, etc.
Sure.
Or what do you think?
Yeah. I'll say Tom is hands down the greatest football player of all time. I mean, to win 6 Super Bowls, and in his case, to spend 20 years with a team and then move to another team and win the Super Bowl your first year with that team it's absurd, right? Especially because people for the past 6 years have said he's too old, he should retire. And in those 6 years, he's won another 3 Super Bowls. It's crazy. As far as him being the greatest athlete of all time, it's so difficult because every sport is operated differently. You look at someone like a Michael Phelps, the amount of gold medals he's won. An American athlete that isn't playing in an Olympic sport like Tom Brady, because American football isn't in the Olympics, you obviously can't win 23 gold medals regardless of how great of a football player you are, right? And so when we talk about the greatest athlete of all time, it's just because different sports have different metrics and they compete at different rates. It's very difficult to compare athletic attributes. And then on the women's side of things, you look at someone like a Serena Williams and what she's accomplished in tennis over 2 decades, and the fact that she's still playing now, like her longevity and the rate of her championships, is comparable, if not surpasses Tom Brady. But it's difficult because you have 4 major Grand Slams and all of the tournaments in between, whereas in football, you've got the Super Bowl every year. So it's definitely difficult to compare sports athletes from different sports and try to say who's greater than whom, just because the dynamics are different. But Tom Brady's definitely the greatest football player of all time, like hands down. And I don't think very many people would debate that.
Yeah. Well, I totally agree. I know, and I realize that it's super hard to say it, but I'm kind of enjoying these discussions because there's always new perspective from someone else, that someone will say, okay, but it depends on the decade because there was not such a competition, and this guy has had competition. So But when we are speaking about these kind of stars, I'm interested. You mentioned that for you is the basketball #1 in your heart. But I'm interested in terms of your idol in the way, or inspirational person from like sports environment. Who is it?
And that's a really good question.
There is someone, for sure.
No, I mean, there are a lot of athletes who I've been inspired by, whether it's just a character, how they perform a specific sport. If I have to choose an all-time favorite athlete, it's Ronaldinho. And I wasn't the biggest soccer player, but when I was a teenager in the mid-2000s was around the time he won the Ballon d'Or. I had never seen an athlete at the top of their sport look like they had as much fun as Ronaldinho did when he would play soccer. And part of the reason why I wear number 10 is because Ronaldinho was a number 10. And just the amount of joy that he played with while playing at a world-class level, the amount of ease in which he made the game look was so inspiring. And for me in the United States, a lot of athletes, or a lot of how athleticism is talked about, is this really intense anal retentive type of thing. And to see somebody really enjoy being a world-class athlete, maybe in his case a little bit too much, and maybe that's why he had a shorter prime, but like I said, prime Ronaldinho, just the amount of joy he had in just making defenders look silly, just the plays that he was able to set up, the no-look passes, the flicks, it was just so inspiring to watch, to see somebody at the top play with joy as opposed to just playing with grit or with intensity. And so if I have to choose an all-time inspiration, it'd be Ronaldinho. But I've had various inspirations in various sports. As far as handball goes, Jackson Richardson was, the first guy that I ever saw, and I was like, dang, I want to be like him. Ivan Obalik as well. He was the best player in the world around the time I got involved in the handball, and a lot of his YouTube clips were online. It's different now with EHF Champions League, EHF TV, showing Champions League games. But when I got involved in handball in 2008, there weren't too many full games online, and only a small number of stars had YouTube videos. Like I said, Ivan Obalik. I ended up playing wing, and everyone's like, "Oh, you should learn to play like Luke Avila." Luke Avila, that was the one name that everybody would mention. And so, if there's a YouTube video on Luke Avila, I'm sure I've watched it. I can almost guarantee that over the past decade and change. And he was the first wing that I really watched and try to model my game after, particularly playing on the right wing. But like I said, there's so many people who inspired my game. As a wing, Anders Eggert, Victor Tomas. Now, Dylan Nahi and Benoit Cocoon of PSG are two of my favorite wings to watch. Gudjon Valor Sigurdsson, just that dude's a machine, man. Like just the way the efficacy that he has in his game as a wing. Valero Rivera, I really like the fluidity of his style. Toby Reichman was one of those guys when I got to the national team. I think he was with might have been Wetzlar at the time. It was before he went to Poland, but let's say like 2015, 2016. Just seeing a couple of Toby Reichman highlights, like, oh, that's interesting. Obviously, he jumps really high, but just his approach to shooting was a little bit different than what I had seen in other players, and that was really inspired by that. And then my favorite club team, despite the fact they still haven't won the Champions League, is Paris, PSG. And my goal with indoor handball was to hopefully be able to play in France. Was kind of, if I had a dream location to play. But Paris was and has been the team that I followed, despite the fact we haven't quite been able to get over that Final Four hump. And when I was with the indoor national team, their wings at the time, Luke, obviously, as I mentioned, was my early inspiration. And before Uwe Gensheimer got there, it was Jeffrey Mtima, Semyon Rubia, and Faridin Melic. And so those four guys were guys that I really looked to model my game after when I was playing indoor handball. So hopefully that answers your question. I say overall, if I have to pick one,
for sure,
it'd be Ronaldinho. But as far as handball goes, there's so many athletes who have inspired my game. And on the B side of things, I've transitioned more to being a center back and more of a playmaker. And, I really like little guys like Earl Zorman, Mia Zarabek, Stas Skube. They're always fun to watch. And then Andy Schmidt, consummate playmaker, another guy that I've drawn inspiration from. And then coming out of Pan Am's in the West is our guy is Diego Simone, who won Champions League with Montpellier. And, to have somebody come from our side of the Atlantic and win at the top level, that's been super inspiring to watch. So I have a lot of inspirations, but the number one in my entire sports life would definitely be Ronaldinho.
Yeah, and I think it's really visible on your style within the handball, because usually guys says that Ronaldinho is dancing within the game, and I think in some cases you are also doing some stuff not normal. I would say so. For us, I mean, during our discussion, I received an info from background that when you describe your experience with such a a lot of sports, etc. So I received info. Okay, you are just describing 4 lives. Not just few years of your life, but 4 lives of some 4 different guys. Okay, someone is the sports model, the second one is playing handball, the third one is playing rugby, and I don't know what. So that's crazy, man. That's crazy.
I've definitely lived an interesting life. I'm 27 years old now, and really the past decade in particular, since I've been 17, when I said I finished high school when I was 16. It's been a journey beyond anything I could have dreamed of, to be honest. And just a lot of things fell into place. Not necessarily did I succeed at every step of the way, but I've been fortunate to live a life where all of these seemingly dissimilar things have been able to somewhat come together in my life now. It's funny that you mentioned it as 4 different lives. It just feels like my life.
Comment, so, yeah, I wanted to mention it, because it's really funny. Yeah. Well, then, tricky question. If someone will ask you, for advice, maybe some kid, or rising stars within the handball, what would be your advice to become handball ninja, basically? What would be advice, from your lessons learned, life lessons learned? Yeah. What would be the message?
Good question. To become a handball ninja, I would say be humble enough to learn from anybody. I think one of the things that, as you've mentioned, is characteristic about my handball game and my athleticism as a whole is how many different sports it draws from. And so be just willing to draw inspiration from anywhere and everywhere. Look at, professional players in your discipline, whether that's handball or in other sports, guys who have already laid out a blueprint to success, and try to learn what you can from their example and try to bring it into your own game. Ultimately, you are your own individual, and you're going to have to craft out a playing style that works for you. It's just a matter of learning what you can from those who succeeded before you, and taking what you think you can integrate into your own game, and then mixing that with your own creativity and your own personal preferences.
Mm-hmm. Thanks a lot for these words. Well, on the very beginning, you mentioned that your name is originally Nigerian, right? But I'm not really sure if I believe you, because we discussed it even before, and you looks like that you have some kind of superpowers, and you originally from Wakanda. And it really corresponds that you are describing 4 different people. So I don't really believe you, and hopefully Wakanda will share with us more people like you.
That's brilliant.
Well, I gotta like another stuff. Basically, David, who is for you guys who are listening or watching, basically David is from our team and is helping with this stream. So before we will go to another, I would say, topic, which is your way of training, because I'm so impressed. So David prepares something, how you can, easily be handball ninja, and he prepared handball ninja starter pack. So, David, can you please share it with us?
I'm curious.
Yeah.
I love the hair.
A lot of things. Yeah. I think that this is the crucial thing. Thank you, David.
The crucial thing is the hair.
Yeah, totally. So, our advice from our podcast is the hair. You need to start, guys, with the hair, and then the practicing.
Everything else is secondary. You just got to start with the hair.
Totally. Not the commitment, not the passion, but
the hair,
guys.
First.
Yeah. Well, here in Czech Republic, we are used to saying, it's not important how basically you are playing, but how do you look like during the playing. So. And this is more important than
I'm surprised that's a Czech saying. I'm actually really surprised.
Yeah. It's kind of funny. Okay, well, this brings me to your way of training. You mentioned that you practicing within last year a lot, within your home, and we got your video. It's from your Instagram channel, I believe. So, David, can you please share us with us the video? Wow.
The
Again,
Handball Ninja
Handball
starter
Ninja
pack
starter
makes me laugh
Yeah.
every time I see it.
Yeah. So yeah. So this is basically the source for the starter pack. No, well, I'm so impressed. I look at it, a couple of times, and if I would like to try it, I will broke my arms. So it's crazy. So well, like tell me, it's from where it's coming. Basically, this kind of methodology of practicing with the hammer and the like small ball, like it's table tennis ball or some another stuff. So you developed it, or it's from somewhere, because I have never seen something similar. I think so.
Yeah. So I don't think I've mentioned this yet, but I, for the most part, grew up right-handed, and I got involved in handball when I was 15, and it was around the time I was 15 years old, right before my 15th birthday, where I had a conversation with two classmates of mine in our history class. We had all played baseball at one point. And we were talking about Ichiro Suzuki, because growing up in Oregon, the closest Major League Baseball team was the Seattle Mariners, and Ichiro Suzuki was the star of that team. And I was a quick player. I was a leadoff hitter, but I was right-handed. And I don't know how much you know about baseball, but the left-handed batter's box is a little bit closer to first base than the right-handed batter's box.
Okay, yeah.
And one of the things I thought of was, man, if I was left-handed, a lot of the plays where they're super close, where I was out, I might have been safe. And that's part of the incentive for some baseball players to learn how to hit with their left hand, is because you're literally closer to the first place you need to run to. And we had this discussion about if it's possible to learn how to be ambidextrous, like how to learn how to use your other hand. Because there are a lot of switch hitters in baseball, but there aren't as many switch throwers or switch pitchers, right?
Totally.
And this discussion led me to realize, like, you know what? If batters have to learn how to hit with their right hand, they can learn how to live with their left, right? I know for me, playing baseball, I had to learn how to throw with my right, even though I'm right-handed. I had to learn how to hit with my right side, even though I'm right-handed. So, like, it was a learning process either way. It may just take longer, but I'm sure you could learn the same way you could learn to hit with your left, you could learn to throw with your left. And they're like, nah, like it'd take forever, But I was convinced that if I just put in the time, I'd be able to learn how to be ambidextrous. And in looking up on Google, ambidextrous athletes or switch pitchers, I found a YouTube video of a guy named Pat Venditti, who was a minor league baseball pitcher, but was throwing with both hands. And you'd have a glove that he was able to switch between his hands. And so I was watching a lot of his YouTube videos, and I read an article on him. And at the end of the article, it mentioned that he was working with an ambidexterity coach named Michael Lavery. And I looked up Michael and his website, Whole Brain Power, and Michael became my ambidexterity mentor. And I've worked on and off with him over the past 13 years now. And Michael's nickname is the Hammer Man, because what he'll do is he'll bounce a golf ball off of various hammers with both hands as a means of developing his hand-eye coordination, his strength. And specifically the golf balls with the hammers was something I got from Michael. And in doing that over the years, learn how to do it with just my left hand, then just my right hand, and then start experimenting with multitasking and doing, two at the same time. And that's something that I've done over the past 13 years. And some of the other tools you saw came from other guys, other athletes I discovered. There were the revolution throwing whips that one of my handball teammates, Scott Nicholson, turned me on to. And basically my approach to training is very cognitive based. It's very coordination based. I always consider athleticism to be a byproduct of the central nervous system, and wherever you can make improvements there, you're going to make improvements in your athletic sport. And so that's where I put my primary focus. It's always been on my coordination and trying to develop that. And a lot of what you saw in that video was how I trained during quarantine. When you don't have the opportunity to train with your teammates and you're not necessarily working on plays or tactics, and you don't have a lot of space to work with, you have to figure out what can you work on to get better as an athlete. And so just putting the emphasis on my coordination. And as you saw, me training in a relatively small amount of space and utilizing the tools there to just keep pushing the envelope as an athlete. I always try to keep working on my ambidexterity, my movement economy, my movement efficiency, my hand-eye coordination. Those are all things that I put a premium on as an athlete, because your physical muscles can only do so much. And as you get older, your energy expenditure becomes more limited. And as long as you're making improvements in your central nervous system, you'll continue to make improvements as an athlete. And so that's kind of where all of that stuff comes from, is just one, trying to work on my ambidexterity and work on my coordination and make sure that I can make improvements there so that I can keep on making improvements on the court.
Yeah, this is really inspirational. I think so, because it's I didn't know it, basically, and I wanted to ask you how it happens that you are both-handed. My question: how long did it take, for you to be able to throw like in handball and to actually score the goal? If we measure it like this.
Yeah, like I said, I started when I was 15. And that was also the same year I started handball, right? And it was just a matter of doing as many things as I could with my left hand or left side of my body. The big thing was writing. Just did a lot of writing in a journal. I remember the first time I tried to write the alphabet, it took me an hour. Like literally, like my hand was like, just because I didn't really have that much fine motor control with my left hand. And I'd write like 2 or 3 letters and my hand would cramp and I'd be too tired and I had to take a break. It literally took me an hour just to write the first 26 letters. Like it literally took me that long, but just kept working at it. Whenever I had free time, just doing as many things with my left as possible. I made Team USA when I was 20 and I debuted on the right wing because that's where I got playing time. As you know, in handball, there are always more righties than lefties, and there's always going to be more space to take a spot on a roster if you're left-handed versus if you're right-handed, right? And in handball is one of the few sports where your handedness matters as far as where you play on the court. And it's actually because I'd been working on my ambidexterity that I even made Team USA when I was 20. If I was just right-handed at the time, we had a Vladimir Angelik, Ian Pinson. We had a number of good, experienced left wings that I would not have gotten playing time over. But it's because I'd been working on my ambidexterity. The small number of left-handers we had at the time in 2014, plus them getting injured, led to me actually getting playing time. And that first year, I mean, I was good enough to play on a national team, but I wasn't by any means Luke Abelo in 2014. I was still learning my craft. There were games where my left hand felt good and the ball was coming out of my hand. I was scoring goals. And there were games where I missed every shot because I couldn't control the ball. And, it's definitely been a process over the past decade and change and the past 7 years as a handball player to develop the control, and not just with, the fingertips or with the wrist, but really with the whole body and learning how to sequence movements and how to mirror movements. If I can figure out a shot with my left, how do I mirror the entire body to do that same shot with my right? And, one of the interesting things I tell people is, because I primarily played handball with my left hand, most handball specific moves I learned with my left. And so I'm a more fluid shooter with my left than my right, but a lot of things on the court as far as passing, I do better with my right. And it's a process of my right hand teaching my left all the things my right hand knows how to do. And then my left teaching my right all of the handball specific things I learned as a handball player. And it's a constant learning process. I'll say, 2014, I made the national team. I was good enough to make a national team, but I wasn't great. 2016, we won Pan Ams, and in our semifinal game, I was playing right wing and I was our leading scorer. And so I'd say 2016 was the first year where you had to respect the fact that I could throw with my left and my right. And beach handball allowed me to do that a little bit more than indoor handball, just because I'm able to move a little bit more on the court. And when I'm taking an in-flight, it's a lot easier for me to pick a hand in the air and score. And there aren't quite as many in-flights or kempas in indoor to do that. And for me, it's just a matter now of trying to leverage the fact that I can utilize my left and my right hand, because not a lot of players can. And a lot of coaches don't really know how to coach an ambidextrous player. But there are a lot of options that you have, as opposed to being just right-handed or just left-handed, is if you're right and left-handed, as opposed to being right or left-handed, there's so many opportunities as far as how you can set up moves, the types of moves you can create if you can switch between hands when you're in the air or just on the ground. And that's really where my focus is now as a player is just trying to leverage what can I do now that I have proficiency with both hands, where most coaches, like I said, aren't used to coaching an ambidextrous player. So it's tactically working with my coaches to figure out how to make the most of my skill set. And then it's just personally just trying to think of new ways to leverage my ambidexterity.
To be honest, I remember just two players, and one of them is you, like both-handed. I mean, from handball. And one of them, he was 16. Here in Prague, there is a big indoor tournament every Easter, like the biggest tournament of indoor handball in Europe. I believe. And he was 16. He play playmaker, and like I'm always saying that he is the one of the best players I have ever seen. I was at the same page, so maybe I'm right now explaining in this way. But in 16 years guy, he was orchestrating the game and the match like so well, and then he scored both-handed. He is superhero. It's crazy. And then it's you, and it's still for me crazy. And like maybe last question related to this, and maybe you already answer it, but like, do you even think about it? Okay, in this situation, or what is the preferable one? I mean, the hand in some situation, or it's right now after you mentioned the decade, it comes naturally.
That's a really good question, a really insightful one. It's one that not too many people actually think to ask me, so I appreciate you asking it. When I was developing my game and really developing my ambidexterity, there was a lot of thought behind where is it advantageous to use which hand. Right? So definitely in the process of becoming a handball player, becoming an international handball player. But as you get older, it becomes a more intuitive thing where you think about it progressively less and less. And now it's just, I put the ball in the back of the net, and whichever hand I use, I think of after the ball's in the back of the net. Right? So now I'm at a point where I really don't have to think about it. Generally, it's about what works in concert with the people I'm playing with. If I'm attacking a certain gap, I know which hand's going to be closer to the center of the court. Obviously, in handball, you want to release as close to the center of the court as possible. And so generally, if I'm on the left side, I'm using my right. If I'm on the right side, I'm using my left. There are a couple of things that are unique to beach that do change that, as far as how do you avoid a block on certain spin shots. And then on the in-flight, it's really an option for me. Whenever I catch the ball, it's just looking at the goalkeeper's positioning. And again, I'm just trying to put the ball in the back of the net. And so most shots, I'm using the hand that's closest to the center of the court. But what a lot of goalkeepers will do when they see me come for an in-flight is they'll move quickly on that far post. And if I see a goalkeeper out of position, instead of taking that near post shot with the hand that's closest to the center, I'll create more of a near post angle by switching to the other hand. Right? And those are the types of things that, as I was developing my game, I was thinking about, and I was like, oh, if I did this in this situation, it would make more sense to use this hand. But now I'm at a point where I really just play, and I don't really think of my hand in this anymore.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but it's really interesting, and I'm really glad that you mention it. Basically, that it's not just about your commitment. Okay, I will start to learn with my left hand, and you put a lot of effort there. But it's about the way of thinking. Okay, how not just me, but my coaches can leverage this, and even on the detail in which situation I really love it. I didn't think about it in this way right now, to be honest. And but like really interesting, discussion. And later I would like to discuss how it's basically developing the tactics within beach handball, because it's still, and maybe we can go to the beach handball topic, which I would like to discuss.
You talk about it now.
Sure. But we got
and then we got
one video.
But the one thing I'll say before we move on is, you asked about beach handball tactics as far as me being ambidextrous. I actually did a full keynote presentation on ambidexterity in handball. So for anybody who watches this, like I answered basically every question about how I became ambidextrous, how I trained for it in handball, how the words difficult. Sorry. The transition I had to make going from handball to beach handball, tactically, the different moves that I created in beach based off of using both hands. So like all those answers, because you didn't not everybody asks the detailed questions that you ask, but a lot of people have asked me, it's like, how do you learn to throw with both hands? And I kind of got sick of answering the question. And so I just did one presentation where it's about 30 minutes long. I'll send the link to you and you can maybe share it with all of your followers. But it's about a 30-minute presentation where I answered just about everything related to me being ambidextrous in handball.
Yeah, that's great. Like happy I'm happy if you share it with us. And yeah, I can imagine that like every single person is asking you. So sorry if I bother you with this, but
no, it's okay. It's okay. It's good for me to answer. But just so you know, since you asked about it, I was gonna
originally I didn't want. Originally I didn't want to spend so much time about this discussion, but I was really impressed about the tactics and way of thinking that before we will jump to the beach handball discussion, I would like to ask David, because we have another video which I would like to share, and it's connected with this topic. So David. So we put it there because like to show our fans who like don't follow you that it's true, and it looks naturally for both sides. It's crazy, and I love to watching. I need to admit it. Okay, let's discuss a couple of things about the beach handball generally. So yeah, I mentioned it before. It's kind of young sport, I think so. Even with the comparison of handball, traditional one, indoor one. But how do you see, generally, maybe the sport and the potential in it? Because we are on the edge that maybe, or not maybe, there is an ambition to be a part of the Olympic Games. So how do you see the sport and the potential and maybe the future development?
Is a bit, what's the word I'm looking for? Discontenting. There's a word I'm looking for. I can't think about it right now, but
no problem.
It wasn't the greatest thing for us to not get Paris 2024. I know there were a lot of people who were pushing for that, and COVID hit, and they decided not to add any new disciplines to existing sports, just to add in the new sports like breakdance. So maybe 2028, which, me being born here in Los Angeles, it wouldn't be a bad place to make an Olympic debut. But as far as the sport as a whole, I think it has so much potential. I think it's a very aesthetically pleasing sport, a very spectator-friendly sport. Just the amount of highlights that the game naturally produces, and the caliber of players we now have in the game, I still think it's incredible that beach handball has developed to what it is, being a primarily amateur discipline. I know there's been some support from the IHF, but for a game where the game's really amateur for the most part, for the players in the game to develop the way they have, the way tactics in the game have developed over the past decade, it's just the amount of passion that beach handball has drawn out of people for the game to be where it is. It's really quite remarkable to me. I think it has the potential to be, like beach volleyball. And on the topic of beach volleyball, the mecca of beach volleyball, like Manhattan Beach, Hermosa Beach, that's where our beach handball team trains. Where really? Where beach volleyball kind of blew up in the 90s is where our beach team trains now. And granted, Americans know what volleyball is, they don't know what handball is, and that's the hurdle we have to deal with. It's not just, oh, here's a sport, I didn't know there was a beach version of it. It's, we don't even know this is a sport at all. So I
wanted to ask you.
Yeah, and I'll talk about that later. It's difficult.
Totally.
as an American handball player when most people don't know your sport. But as far as beach handball as a whole, I think the game has so much potential. It's just getting maybe the right sponsors or the right television contract. I really think it could be the next beach volleyball. And I love beach volleyball. I love beach sports as a whole. But in my admittedly biased opinion, I think beach handball is the most exciting team beach sport. And no disrespect to beach soccer either, because I'm a beach soccer fan as well. Just, from the rest of the world looking in, from the World Games and, the Anarch World Beach Games, they do so much to push beach handball, and, beach handball related, clips have their highest engagement. And it's such an aesthetically pleasing sport. And I don't know why it hasn't quite taken off in the professional sense, even when it's found a relatively sizable, amateur following. But as far as where I see the sport going, I think it could be the next beach volleyball. I think if you include it into the Summer Olympic Games, you have your professional tours. It'll be a little bit different in beach as opposed to indoor, where you have 9 months, domestic, one country, you got a league. It'll be a little bit different with the beach setup. Maybe you have different beach competitions where the teams travel. Not quite entirely sure how that would play out, but I think long-term picture is I think beach handball could be the next beach volleyball. Be an Olympic game, be a professional game. Huge crowds. Huge television sponsors. That's the ceiling of where I see beach handball, and I don't think it's too outlandish. I think the product of beach handball is a really good one. Just the caliber of game, how entertaining some of the games are, especially with the shootout format. There's so many close games, so many, heart-wrenching games. I think it's a really, really marketable sport. It just hasn't quite gotten over that hump yet.
Yeah. I totally agree. When for the first time, I was a speaker on first year of the Prague handball. What is the name? Prague Open Beach Handball Tournament, and I was the speaker there. And I said to one of my colleagues, okay, I will be speaker there of the beach handball tournament. And they said, okay, there is even beach handball, not just handball. And I said, and it was guys, and I said, do you like beach volleyball? The women one. And they, yeah, for sure. Okay, and I said, multiply it by 10 and imagine on the one ground. And this is it, and much more attractive, not just from this perspective, but from the sport perspective.
I understand.
Yeah, but also, for ladies, because it's not just guys who has 2 meters and thin thin arms, but kind of shaped guys. So I think from visual perspective and the attractivity itself, the spin shot, the whole system, so yeah, I have to agree, there is so much potential in this sport. And yeah, at least from what I see here in Europe, I think it's growing. For instance, Poland, it's really pushing it, and there is a strong partner, and I believe it will continue and rise, basically. Maybe the question, how does it look like the scene of the beach handball in USA? So there is some kind of league or leagues, or how it is, or how it is.
Yeah, a good question. We don't have enough players for there to be a quote-unquote league, so to speak. Back in 2016, when I first got involved with the national team, we had a Southern California league between Los Angeles and San Diego. It's like a series of co-ed competitions. But the community here for handball is just so small. It's difficult to have leagues, quote-unquote. And so it's really just the culmination of national team pool players, get together and train, and we arrange scrimmages amongst each other. But it's not as if we're traveling state to state and competing against teams from Boston or from New York or from other cities. Most of beach handball, not all, but most of beach handball is concentrated in Southern California, primarily Los Angeles, but also a little bit in San Diego. The new women's national team coach is based out of Atlanta, Georgia, which is like Southeast United States. And so she's trying to build the beach handball community and scene there. There are a few players in Northern California. The women's assistant national team coach is based out of Northern California. But for the most part, we're based out of Southern California. I think there are 20 male beach handball players in our pool, which for a country of 350 million people is very small. But in that 20, we've been fortunate to be able to take 10 guys to various world competitions. And we've won 2 continental titles since I've been involved with the beach team, the 2016 Pan American Championships and the 2019 North American Caribbean Championships, where I was MVP. And we've played it 2 world championships as well as the World Beach Games. So for being a relatively small community, we've still been competitive on the international beach handball scale, which I don't think we get enough credit for, to be honest, because we didn't grow up playing handball primarily. The crazy thing is I got involved in handball when I was 15 years old. And that's the youngest age that anybody on my team got involved in the sport of handball, indoor or beach. For most of us, it's, we play basketball, baseball, football, soccer, lacrosse. And then after we finish our college careers, or in some cases, our professional careers in other sports, we then discover handball in our 20s and in some cases our 30s. Some of my national teammates started playing handball after the age of 30. Which is really crazy to think about.
That's great. That's crazy, man. It's really crazy.
But the cool thing with beach is there's a much longer shelf life than with indoor handball because it's a lot less physically demanding. One of our starters on our national team now. Oh, he's gonna kill me if he ever watches this podcast. But our starting left wing on our beach national team now, he's 40 years old. But he's still killing it, and because in beach, you take so much less wear and tear than you do in indoor. You can play beach competitively at a much older age. I look at the Brazilian national team, their captain, Gil Pires, I want to say he's 37 now, but he's still playing like one of the best players in the world because physically it's not nearly as demanding, just as far as, the amount of hits that you take and how jarring the game is in beach versus indoor, that, you can play beach competitively to a much, much older age.
Really interesting. Well, you mentioned it a couple of times that you have been there and there, so a lot of places. But I'm interested. Where did you enjoy the most, or maybe what was the the like strong memory for you somewhere or around the globe?
For sure. Brazil will always hold a special place in my heart. That's where I really learned how to play beach handball. I played in Brazil 2016, 2017, 2018, and 2019. In different club competitions, as well as with my national team in the United States. But Brazil is where I really learned the game. Brazil is where I got the nickname American Ninja, which is now Handball Ninja. And I'm just forever in debt to the community of people there. They treat me like family. Whenever I compete there, they take care of me no matter where I am in the country. So I'd say Brazil definitely stands out. As far as other places go, I played in China in 2018 in the Chinese Championship, and we won that competition. And that was a super cool competition because they had me bring an international team. And so I was the one North American on the team. But then we had 2 Brazilians, 2 guys from Uruguay, a Croatian, a guy from Australia, a guy from New Zealand. And then we had a Spaniard and a Hungarian also on the roster. And it was this mixed team that went into China and won that championship. And the hospitality that we received in China was unlike anything I've experienced as an athlete. Like they really took care of us. Transport, hotel accommodation. We were in this beautiful 5-star hotel. I was like, what? This is crazy.
Sounds great.
China was a cool one. Brazil, I'd say if I have to choose a place, just because I played there the longest as a beach handball player, is actually also where I played my first international game with indoor handball. In 2014, I played in the Pan American Championships for indoor, and that tournament was in Canelones, Uruguay, but we did our preparation camp with the Brazilian national team in Santa Catarina, Joinville, Brazil. And so my very first international handball game was in the south of Brazil. And then 2 years later, I came back for beach. And like I said, 2016, 2017, 2018, 2019, got to play beach in Brazil. And so Brazil as a country as a whole would be my favorite.
Okay. And what is the best crowd ever you played for, and maybe how big? Because I'm not really sure how the not just the stadium, but the court for beach handball can look like in Brazil. I know I can imagine something in Poland because I saw it, or here in Czech Republic, but I don't know, to be honest. I didn't see any videos. So what is the biggest crowd you play for?
It's actually a really good question. I mean, if you think of a beach stadium, like what they would have in Plock, right? Maybe several hundred people around the main court. Played in that size of a crowd in Brazil. It's not the type of thing where there's 100,000 people or anything, something like the Laxness Arena where it's like 50K people. Big beach stadium is going to fill maybe several hundred people at the most, right?
Yeah.
But in Brazil, national championships, particularly in 2017, that packed out crowd all the way around, several hundred people. One crowd that I'll always remember, and because I can never forget this game, is we played Russia in Russia on day one of the 2018 World Championships. And we were the opening ceremonies game, us against Russia, right? And so everybody was there right after the opening ceremonies, and that crowd was really cool because the game went back and forth. And obviously they're there primarily rooting for Russia, but like I said, all the countries were there. So it wasn't just Russian fans. And being in that kind of a packed crowd, and you kind of hear, like, obviously they cheer when Russia scores, and then you hear a couple cheers whenever we score. And then the game ended up being really exciting and went into a shootout, and then I got red carded, and we ended up losing. But there were a lot of highlights from the game, and the fans were really appreciative after the game. So the crazy thing about that game is we got eliminated after we lost that shootout. And as I'm walking out for my red card, because you can't stay in the stadium if you get a straight red, right? Or even if you get a red in general. I'm walking out. I got randomly selected, quote unquote, for drug testing, right? And so some young man comes up to me, is like, "Hey, Mr. Ebiye, you got selected for drug testing. I've got to take you." I'm like, "I can't even watch the game." It's like, "No, I've got to go." But like as I'm going out, the game ends. They'd won. Fans like stopped me from like going to drug testing because they all wanted a photo or an autograph. It was like, he's like, "It's okay. You can take pictures, but ultimately we got to go." And so I spent like a good 20, 30 minutes, really? taking pictures and signing autographs for these Russian fans before getting whisked away to drug testing. And granted, we had just got eliminated from this World Championship, so I wasn't in the greatest of moods. But I always appreciate being appreciated. So if anybody ever is going to ask me for an autograph or a selfie, I'll definitely put on a smile because I appreciate it, even if I'm not in the best of moods.
Yeah, sounds great. Well, another curious question from my side. You mentioned a lot of things where you participated, what you achieved, and what is the most valuable achievement for you, or what do you consider as the biggest achievement, what you did so far? And then I would like to move to your dreams.
Okay. Biggest achievement as an athlete so far, I'd have to say, was being World Games Athlete of the Month last June. And the reason why I say that's my biggest achievement, more so than something that I've accomplished in handball, is that was an award that I won in part because of where I am as an athlete, but that was more of who I was as a person. And they gave me that award because during the times of COVID, I utilized my social media platform to try to motivate and inspire people, and just my ability to stay positive, always, try to find the opportunity in any crisis. And, I mentioned my background as a content creator. I spent years working in the sports commercial space in Oregon as well as in Los Angeles. And to be able to work on a project just for me, when you do these types of projects for clients, ultimately they determine the final edit. There were a number of projects that I worked on where me and the director, like we'd shoot all these amazing things, and then they wouldn't use a lot of those clips because ultimately, you're not the one who controls the edit. But to be able to do a project, and now with my own social media, I do things for myself, but to be able to do a project, to do a big project where I was director, I wrote the script, I was co-editor, with my videographer, chose the music, like to be able to really control a sports project and do it my way and put in all the Easter eggs that I wanted to, and for that to be acknowledged with as great of an acknowledgement as World Games Athlete of the Month, I would say that's my biggest accomplishment, because it wasn't just me as an athlete. It's really me as a human being. Everything that I've done, up until that point, I was able to put into that project, and for that to be acknowledged positively by a global organization like the International World Games, I'd say that's my biggest achievement. As far as my dreams go, really, I just want to keep playing beach handball as long as I can physically play. It's always tough when you have a primarily amateur game to make sure you have enough sponsors to play, or to necessarily, figure out how you can play. Right? We as American handball players haven't gotten the level of sponsorships that have allowed us to keep a lot of players around. And so every year that I get to play, I consider it an achievement. Obviously, I would love to play in the Olympics, if LA 2028 happens for us. But I think that goes without saying, if anybody gets the opportunity to be an Olympian, I'm sure they'll take it.
Totally,
And then, on the beach side of things, I really just want to see beach sports grow. Played in the first World Beach Games. Looking forward to playing the next one in 2023. And I've become a big fan of beach volleyball and beach soccer and beach tennis, since 2019, and just getting to interact with other beach sport athletes from all across the globe. I definitely want to see beach sports take off. I'd love if the next Antioch World Beach Games, people treated it like they do the Summer and Winter Olympics, and it had that level of coverage, and people from all across the globe were able to follow the beach sport athletes, the best beach sport athletes in the world, the way that they follow the Summer and to a lesser extent Winter Olympians. I'd love to see beach sports as a whole grow, and to be a part of that through being a part of the men's beach handball team. Like I said, really, I just want to play. I just want to keep growing as an athlete. But as far as dreams go, being an Olympian would be great. To see the World Beach Games grow into a bigger spectacle than what it is, that'd be great as well. And then just here in the United States, I actually recently became the beach athlete director for USA Team Handball. So I'll be working over the next 4 years through my terms through 2024. So I'll be working to help try to build beach handball here over the next 3 or 4 years. So that's kind of where I'm at.
Okay. I got just to comments, and you just mentioned it. First of all, I'm super sure that I'm speaking for everyone who is supporting you and is your fan, that we believe and we wish you that you will play as long as it will be possible, because it's such a joy, to watch you do your magic on the ground. So this is my first comment. And the second one, I wanted to ask you, basically, you mentioned it that you wish that the beach sports generally will grow. And I wanted to ask you, what do you think and consider as important, what needs to be done, because we both said that the attractivity is there from the spectators, for the players, etc. But what is missing right now?
That's a really good question, and it's one that I think about a lot. To be honest, especially in our social media culture, beach sports make for very attractive clips, right? And when you compare beach sports to the same sport on a different surface, the beach version of the game tends to be more of a finesse game, because athletes can throw their bodies a little bit more and not have to worry about their landing as much. And there's so much that's there. So I always question, why can't we get maybe a little bit more mainstream, even though there's so much that would be enticing to fans, to sponsors, to spectators. it may just be a matter of time. I feel as if, in talking with beach athletes in other sports, they mention similar things. I'm friends with a number of beach soccer players here in the United States, and beach soccer's obviously been around longer than beach handball, but it's just a process of trying to get people on board with the fact that there's a beach version of this game that you already know. And, for everything that I've accomplished, and, for me being on this team for 5 or 6 years, the majority of people who walk by us in Hermosa Beach still come up and is like, hey, what game are you playing? Despite the fact that, we've been training there for 6 years and we've won 2 continental titles. It's just a process of letting people know that there are these competitive beach sports in addition to, the other surfaces that these games are played on, and that they're competed at a high level with world-class athletes.
Yeah. I agree, and I think maybe my perspective, I see the issue also with handball indoor generally, because for sure it's a traditional sport, it's an Olympic sport, and in Europe especially it's really mature. But I think that from attractivity perspective, the handball generally is much more advanced or more attractive than, for instance, some other indoor sports, but they are more popular from generally people. I think so, and I think that we are not able to sell it. You mentioned the word product, and this is exactly the thing. We are not able to sell it, the tough game, the fair game, interesting guys, sell the story. So this is maybe one thing what I'm kind of missing, even in the indoor, not just within the beach, because for sure it's much more younger. So, but the sell the story of the guys, I think I consider it as an important thing.
Yeah, I agree with you 100%. Narrative is very important. That's half of what draws people into sports.
Yeah.
I think one of the reasons the Olympics is such a huge deal isn't so much that everybody loves sports, is a lot of people are just drawn to the narratives. What journey was an athlete on? How did they get there?
Exactly.
And trying to craft narratives that push a sport forward can be difficult. And it's one of the things that we've struggled with here in the United States is just trying to promote our athletes and promote their stories and make them seem really attractive. And I think that's, as you mentioned, something that handball struggles with as a whole. For as popular a sport as it is in some places, it's a type of game where I don't understand why it isn't even a bigger sport. You mentioned that there are other indoor sports that are bigger.
This is my point.
And as someone who's been involved in handball for 13 years now, when I first got involved in handball, I asked the same questions, like, why isn't this a much, much bigger sport than what it is, indoor or beach? And 13 years later, I don't know what it is about handball where seemingly everything's there to make for an attractive game, and we just can't market the product in a way that other sports that I don't think are quite as aesthetically pleasing. Granted, my opinion, your opinion, we're biased as handball players, but I think just there's so much that handball provides as far as an aesthetically pleasing sport. I don't know what the hurdle is in us really being able to sell the sport in the way that other sports that aren't necessarily as attractive have been able to do.
Yeah. And for me, it's an important question. I'm asking myself very often. And hopefully it will be better. This leads me to the final chapter. And before we will jump into it, if there is any questions to Ebiye, so please feel free to ask. There will be space for a Q&A session on the very end of our discussion, so feel free. Even in Czech, I will translate it, so no worries. And we will put on the screen later. And this brings me to discussion about handball generally, because I'm really curious, how does it look like, the scene about the handball in USA? I mean, is it people are aware, or is it even intercorporated on high school programs or universities programs or not? Yeah.
As far as handball in the United States, it's not a scholarship sport where a kid can get a scholarship to play at university, but there are a number of universities who offer recreational or for fun club teams. Not the majority. I don't know the specific number. I'd put it in the ballpark of 20 to 40 schools offer handballs as a recreational game. And that may be on the high side as opposed to on the low side.
Okay.
Big point is handball isn't really popular here. We don't have a professional league here. We try to get our best and most promising players located overseas. One of my beach teammates, Drew Donlin, plays for Ademar Leon. He actually just played in the final of Copa Rey against Barcelona. But it's like anything, it's a process. We have a club system here. Most major cities have a handball club. San Francisco and New York have several adult teams within that club, but most teams, it's one adult team in the club. I got started with the Portland club, and I was the one kid on the team. I was one of two American-born players on the team because it's generally Europeans, South Americans, those who grew up playing handball and have relocated to the United States and just want to keep playing handball, right? That's the majority of who runs our clubs, our adult clubs here, right? It's a work in progress. Like I said, not a university sport. There have been a number of initiatives over the years to incorporate it into schools' physical education curriculums. And there's a community of people who are working on that. But like I said, it's not a scholarship sport. So as opposed to a basketball or baseball or football where a kid can play in school, play for their high school team, and then try to get a scholarship. We're not quite there yet with handball. But there are a number of grassroots initiatives to incorporate them into different physical education curriculums, right? And then as far as how many club teams we have, I want to say, like I said, maybe 30 to 40. Obviously, they haven't played since COVID.
That's obvious.
But normally there's a national championship hosted every May. On the indoor side of things, and they have two divisions. There's kind of like an A division and a B division. You have to qualify for the A division. The B division's open to any team that registers. Generally speaking, the team that wins is a team full of guys who grew up playing handball outside of the United States and have since moved to the United States. Every once in a while, an American team, a primarily American athlete team wins, but for the most part, it's generally clubs with primarily non-American players who win our national tournaments, which I say is testament to the lack of Americans we've been able to get and stay in the game. But as I mentioned, one of the things that's changed since I was on the international team, like the Rio Olympic cycle, 2013, 2016 versus now is with the new CEO, there's been a much more concerted effort to get our promising players on clubs overseas because the ceiling of how much we can develop athletes here is relatively low. Right? And the new initiative with Forum Club Handball's done a good job of really identifying promising American players and trying to get them placed with clubs overseas. We have got a goalkeeper at Christiansted. As I mentioned, my beach teammate Drew Donlin is with Ademar Leon. We have a wing who's on Flensburg's second team. And so we're trying to do what we can to get more Americans learning the game in Europe with elite clubs and hoping they can bring a greater wealth of knowledge back to our national team programs and inspire other Americans to pick up the game. I think one of the big hurdles for us with handball as Americans is it's not a very feasible end game. It doesn't make sense for a good athlete to pass up a 9-figure salary in the NBA, NFL, or MLB to make maybe if you sign with Paris 7 figures. Just when you look at what athletes have as far as potential opportunities in the United States, handball, we can't compare to basketball, to football, to baseball. And I've had to tell, parents of young kids who've discovered me, it's like, honestly, have little Johnny take the baseball scholarship. Just the amount of time and effort before he'll get something back in handball, it's not worth the investment. And it's unfortunate to say. And so I'm really happy with the initiative of Forum Club Handball to try to get more Americans on professional clubs overseas and really establish that this is something that they can make a career out of. Because I think that's one of the big things with Americans is, how much money am I going to make, right? And until we can get handball to be a sport where we can tell a young kid, it's like, hey, you can make 7 figures if you go through this pipeline and you develop in handball, you're not going to get Americans choosing handball when they have so many other lucrative athletic opportunities.
Yeah, I wanted to ask you originally if you see the space, for a competition, because there's so much sports. I mean, the traditional ones, like to be basketball player, to be baseball player, to play NFL, to play NHL. So, and then you also have like NASCAR, so these kind of car sports. So, if there is a space to compete, and to convince kids, okay, guys, do this because it's great.
I'd say if there's any country that can get good at a sport that they aren't good at, it's definitely the United States. We're such a wealthy sports country. Like, we invest billions with a B, into sport annually. And I've got friends who have played even lesser traditional sports, like competitively. One of my, as I mentioned earlier, one of my former beach teammates, I met through dodgeball, and he played on one of the best club dodgeball teams here. He's won a lot of prize money. I've seen spike ball on ESPN. I mentioned I played ultimate disc, ultimate frisbee when I was at university, and I've seen that on ESPN, and I've seen cornhole on ESPN.
No way.
There's so many niche sports that have found a way to get television time and sponsorships, and for whatever reason, there's like some sort of repellent with handball, and it doesn't make any sense at all. Like, we are definitely a country, if any, that if we're not big in the sport, we can become big in the sport. We can get enough people, then build it up. And for whatever reason, handball just has this repelling effect where we can't grow the sport. Seemingly everything is there, where it would make sense to want to be big in this sport. And maybe that changes. And with COVID, that presents another set of hurdles as far as recruiting new players, right? The amount of games we can play, for me, it's just been training. Like I said, we haven't had a formal game since February 2020, just because of COVID. It's tough to grow a sport in the COVID era because you can't really give people places to play. Which is really unfortunate. But I think just on a general note, there's definitely, there's 350 million Americans, and there's billions we invest in a sport. Like, there are definitely enough people who, if we could give them the incentive and the means, would fall in love with handball and want to play handball. It's just, like I said, there's so many other sports, and especially now with COVID, it's so difficult to facilitate new people getting involved into something. Said I'll do what I can within my power to try to help grow the sport and provide as many playing opportunities to Americans as I can. But I'm one person at the end of the day.
Yeah, I just you again steal my comment, because I wanted to say that, okay, then probably it's up to you. You should be easy task. Easy task.
Easy, right?
Spread and sell handball across your country, like.
But I'll
not
do
a big
what
deal,
I can. I'll do what I can.
Yeah, and for sure appreciate it, because the way I think the way how you are doing it on your social content, I'm not specifically meaning, I think this is the way how this should be done. So hopefully it will work, because I was like 2 months ago, it was such a pity that basically your team can't participate on the indoor handball championship because of COVID.
It was a really unfortunate situation on a number of levels. It wasn't just like we couldn't play. It was we got this bid from the IHF, and there was a lot of controversy with that decision. Because Greenland, who was also out of our continent, historically is placed higher than us. And it's like, oh, you're just giving it to the United States because you want the United States to become bigger because of a money issue. And so it was like our guys are like, no, we actually have a much better team now than what we used to have. And they were hoping to prove that. And then for them to get into Denmark and for them to have that whole scandal unravel, for the amount of people who tested positive, and obviously for the players. And as I mentioned, my current beach teammate Drew is on that indoor team, and other guys who have played beach with us are on that team, and we're always rooting for them. And just for the players who, for the United States men to have not played at a world championship in 20 years, to have that opportunity to play and then have that taken away from them, we were obviously really bummed for them. And then there's just also the fallout of, from a PR perspective, where USA Team Handball is really hoping to use this world championship as a means of showing and promoting the sport. And then for USA Team Handball to lose that opportunity and have to deal with, all the positive COVID tests and, the PR fallout, it was unfortunate on a number of levels. Everything that happened with those guys, but you gotta carry forward.
It's such a pity. Such a pity.
Yeah, it's really unfortunate all around.
Yeah, but by the way, you were not alone, because our Czech Republic also didn't participate. It was also pity and kind of like, they did not manage it well.
Was it Switzerland that replaced you guys?
Not actually, because I think so that it was Switzerland was us, it was North Macedonia.
Yeah, Macedonia, Lazaro, that's right. Yeah,
Macedonia. Right. And it's really paradox, because we are competing with them for a long years, and it was really paradox that they replaced us.
Yeah,
it was also from PR perspective, it was such a misfortune for us.
You guys, for sure.
Yeah. Okay, but I believe that the handball indoor as well as beach handball will grow in USA, because I still believe that there is a potential. Even right now, it's not well paid. I think so. You are not able to do career and be international star. In USA. But let's believe, because this can help generally the sport move forward.
Definitely. So. The IHF hasn't made it a secret that they're invested in trying to make handball bigger in the United States to grow handball as a sport globally. If you can tap into the US or the Chinese market, that's huge for your sport as a whole. And I know that the IHF is really looking to push us forward best they can. And like I said, we'll see. I look at life post-COVID as a new era, as a new opportunity. And, maybe this new era is the era where beach handball takes off in the United States.
Yeah, fingers crossed.
Fingers crossed.
Yeah. Okay, cool. I think that we can move to the Q&A session, because I received some kind of info that we should have some questions. So if I may ask David, show the first question. Okay, it's a question from Jiří Opava, who is one of the two guys who are organizing the Prague Open Beach Handball here in Prague. So do you plan participation as US team in future again? Okay, so
for sure. So going back to 2017 was the first time we got to play at the Prague Beach Open. And for us in the United States, one of the things we try to do, if we have a summer where we don't have a world championship or an IHF competition, we try to arrange back-to-back weekends, maybe like a 10-11 day beach handball trip. And in 2017, it worked out where the second week of June was Prague. And then the following week, we were in Lausanne, France for a competition. We kind of did that back to back, and we're working on a back to back this year. It's considerably more difficult now with COVID, traveling anywhere, yet alone trying to arrange to play beach handball, and you have to factor in testing, and you have to quarantine somewhere. And most of my guys, they have careers where you can only take so much time off of work, and so we're trying to get back into Europe. Like I said, we haven't played anything since February of 2020. So maybe in the future, like I said, COVID's definitely changed a lot of life dynamics. Right now, we're trying to compete in Europe this summer, but there's so many more hurdles with COVID as far as traveling and trying to manage that. I will say, playing in 2017, the Saturday of the competition was my 24th birthday. And we ended up playing Norway. It was like the last game of the day on that Saturday. And right as tip-off was about to happen, they stopped the game to wish me a happy birthday. And it's a moment it's a moment I'll never forget. And so I definitely have fond memories of Prague, just hospitality and how you guys treated me, because it was my birthday and definitely didn't have to stop a whole game just to sing me happy birthday. But it's one of those things that I'll definitely never forget. So maybe in the future. Right now, we're just trying to work on playing anything, regardless of place. Like I said, we haven't played since February 2020, and there's a lot less of an incentive to try to make sure we can play beach versus indoor. So we'll see. We'll see. Maybe.
Let's believe that our new normal will bring us back on the courts soon, and also let's believe that you and your teammates will be able to join some tour of beach handball tournaments across the Europe, and one of them will be Prague. Okay, exactly. Thanks for the answer, definitely. Yeah. And the next question. Okay, somehow So somehow we already answered, but maybe just quick wrap up.
Yeah, you asked me this question earlier, but professional life revolves around sports. Not so much the competition, but everything that I leverage off of competing. I do coach. Do work with a number of clients, generally in skill development. I do speaking engagements, not just podcasts, but I'll do speaking engagements for teams, for corporations, for groups. That, and then managing sponsorships that I receive through my social media is kind of my professional life summed up. So I'm a sportsman and not a sportsman. It's kind of the conglomerate of being involved in sports is my life.
In these times, I think it's normal that in many sports, majority of the not salary but income, I think so, came from the another activities than the primary focus of the sportsman. So it's pretty normal, and it's part of our lives.
It's part of the new normal, just part of also the social media era as well.
Yeah. Okay, thanks. Do we have another question? I believe that yes. Okay. Okay. That's an interesting question.
Okay, answer, or are you gonna read? My fault. I was waiting for you to read the question.
No, well, maybe
I only see part of the question when it comes up. So can you read out the full question? Because I can see the top line. It says if a European handball team wanted me, would you accept?
If an European handball team wanted you, would you accept an offer to play in Europe in both beach and indoor handball? So if there will be I understand it in a way that if you will interesting offer in terms of conditions and salary, I think so. Would you move to the Europe and play here professionally?
Pre-COVID, I would have said yes. I think with just my career now, it'd be very difficult for me not to be based here in Los Angeles, especially now that I'm the beach athlete director for USA Team Handball. I train the majority of national team pool players on the men's and women's side. I feel like I'd be abandoning them if I went to play in Europe. And then, just on the social media side of things, my two trainers are SoCal based. And then there are a lot of, collaboration opportunities and a lot of opportunities outside of the sport that are available to me here in Los Angeles. So I don't see myself moving from LA. One of the cool things about beach for me has been the amount of places I've been able to travel to versus if I just played professionally indoor and I'm 9 months in one place. Pre-COVID, we would have, 2-3 competitions in various countries in a given calendar year. And then when you add in, my touch rugby experience, I was traveling to 4 different countries on average in a year to play sport. Although it's like a week or 2 at a time, like that's still more than if I was just 9 months in one place, which I personally prefer. And then just having home base be Los Angeles for my career is kind of where I need to be. So to answer the question, I'd say no. If pre-COVID, I would have been more inclined to say yes, but I'm just now at a place in my life where so much of my life requires me to be here in LA. I now own this house now here in LA. And so I'm going to be here for the foreseeable future and then operate out of here in Los Angeles. Of course, I'll still travel for competitions, but as far as physically relocating somewhere else, my life now, I couldn't see myself leaving LA for a number of reasons. Yeah. But really good question though.
Yeah, I understand, and thank you for your honest answer. And I get it, and understand. Kind of funny, when we discussed it, how long does it take, our conversation? I said, okay, maybe it can be around 1 hour. Let's see how the flow will be. Okay, and then here we are, like 1 hour and 56 minutes.
The time is flown. The time is really flown.
Yeah, time is flown.
That long. Yeah.
Yeah, for me, it was super interesting, and I enjoy it. So, thank you, basically, again, that you participated here, and hopefully you enjoyed also this conversation.
No, it was great. I had a really good time. I haven't been on a podcast for this long. I think ever, but like I said, the conversation, it really just, it flew by, and I appreciate the insightful questions that you ask. Sometimes I get to an interview and it's a lot of repetitive questions, or the interviewer isn't necessarily the most checked in. So I really appreciate just the amount of work you guys put in on the front end to make sure that you had conversations that flowed and that you asked me insightful questions. And it was just cool to chat. I really appreciate it, Stefan. I really appreciate it.
Yeah. Appreciate it also from my side, and thank you for fans who they were online here with us, and for sure this whole episode will be on our YouTube channel, so definitely we will share it. Also you can share it, so that's one important thing. And again, maybe I will give you the space. Last words, or last speech of you. What do you would like to say to, generally, to fans or whatever? It's up to you.
Sure. First things first. Anybody who wants to keep up with me and what I do, I'm at Handball Ninja on all social media. That's Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, TikTok, the whole 9. It should be on the upper left portion of your screen, at HANDBALLNINJA, for anybody who wants to keep up with me. And then otherwise, my one piece of life advice that I live by is: you're never too old to dream, you're never too young to succeed. And that's generally, if I'm going to leave with final words, it's generally going to be that, whatever it is that you want to do, whether you think that you're too old to get involved in something, or you're not the right fit for something. I started playing handball when I was 15, and now I'm one of the better beach handball players in the world. So if there's something that you have a passion for, regardless of the level you do it at, start doing it when you do it, even if you feel as if you're too old to do it. And then don't feel as if you're ever too young to assume a certain position or to accomplish something or to step into a leadership role. You know, have faith and have confidence in who you are and what you do. So that's always my final saying: never too old to dream, never too young to succeed.
Yeah, thank you for these words and also generally the inspirational chat. So much energy and, you know, your commitment and passion for the sport. It's so inspirational. So thank you again. Follow the Handball Ninja and follow us if you like this podcast. And yeah, this was my special guest, Ebiye Jeremy Udo-Udoma, aka Handball Ninja. So thank you again and see you guys. Bye.
Pleasure, Stefan. Take it easy, guys.